Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Expressions Podcast. Today we're on episode 4, and I have two really special, amazing guests on today, and I'm really excited to talk to them. But before I do that, I'd like to say hi to my co-host here. How are you doing today, Mark?
Excellent. Yourself, Aurora?
I'm doing awesome. How about you, Brian? How you feeling?
I'm stoked. I'm actually very excited. I just want to thank these guys before we get too far into it for jumping on here so quickly. We had another plan, and you guys you said yes, and thank you very much for it. And
how about you, Ryan?
Hey, always ready to rock. I'm looking forward to getting to know these guys and hearing their stories. So
that's great. I was talking about the very special guests. Today we have James and Jon Laxton. They are very talented musicians who have had a passion for music and other creative art forms for a very long time. And they've been in an amazing group called the Noolands, which we're going to talk a little bit about. They're also my cousins. So that's
and by the way, they're family members.
Yeah. Slight bias there. That's how they got the booking.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on, guys. How are you guys doing today?
James, you're muted.
Yeah, James is muted the whole time.
Yeah.
Still muted. There you go.
Hey, there he is. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having us. It's awesome.
No, I really appreciate you guys doing this last minute.
Yeah, no worries. It's always nice to chill virtually, kind of jump in and hang out. I kind of miss it. We haven't done one of these ourselves in a long time. We used to run live streams almost weekly. So this is pretty wicked. Using the same program, it kind of feels very nostalgic.
I was watching a few of those actually. It's fun when you can just kind of get together and throw out ideas and just everybody has their own place go. And you can be home, you can be comfortable. Technology.
It's awesome.
Some of us could be home.
Yes, Mark. Where are you right now, Mark?
Sault Ste. Marie. So I left Thunder Bay about 11 o'clock this morning. Had to stop a bunch of times for conference calls and got here just before we started recording.
Nice. So you've just super settled in then.
Yeah, I'm not settled in at all. You can't see a pile of stuff over there.
Well, this is
awesome.
how happy we are to have this conversation. We're doing it from all over the place, so it's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. So James and Jon, I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey to finding music and other creative art forms. So can you guys tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I guess music has always sort of been a part of our lives. With our Aunt Teresa played piano. My dad always played guitar when we were kids. That was a huge highlight about all of it. Was that growing up as kids, waking up in the morning to dad playing music at 6 a.m. before you had to go off to work. He's just playing a few tunes and then booking out the door. But that's the way you wake up in the morning, where he would play us some tunes to put us to bed at night. And, it's a funny story. It's our family. Our parents are separated, so we'd have to go visit my dad every other week when we were kids. And we're James and I are the youngest of 4, being twins. I'm older than James by 4 minutes.
4 minutes. He's so old.
Have you held that against him his whole life, or?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's all right. I'm younger.
You're not allowed to have cake until 4 minutes after I've eaten it. But so it's just funny memories of going to visit my dad. He didn't have much space in a basement apartment when we were younger. So it'd be the 4 of us sleeping on one big mattress, and there's Dad either reading us a book or singing us a song to sleep. And I guess that's sort of where music started and in our lives, and from there,
then from there, in I guess we always wanted to learn how to play music, but then really didn't take advantage of it until about grade 8, grade 9, when a group of friends just got together and started playing music. And that was kind of like our first band experience, and really drove us to keep doing it. Instead, people were hanging out playing video games, and we had converted the basement into our own little jam space, and that's what we did. Our friends came over and we just played music all the time. And our neighbors somehow were okay with it, even though we lived in a townhouse.
Yeah,
and
we
played death metal.
Oh, geez.
I remember that house, and I remember coming to visit and seeing all Uncle Will's like guitars up on the wall.
Well, that was Dad's place. The other place was Mom's place, the townhouse. So.
Oh yeah, okay. So I was thinking that was that one then. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, music followed you everywhere, right? It's who you are. Yeah, I get it. When I was younger, my mother was a barbershop chorus director, and my brother, sister, and I and her were a quartet. So it was always, going to sleep with my father and his folk music group playing, and waking up to hear the music. And it was always my mother's shows and stuff like that. Growing up with that kind of influence throughout your entire life, I mean, how could you not be involved in music? My mother plays the piano, mandolin, guitar, banjo. I mean, you name it. I know, James, you play guitar, piano, and drums.
Yeah,
and John, you play bass. Do you guys each play everything though? Like,
yeah, so the thing was, like, growing up learning how to play music, like, I was very theory driven, and not so much my ear for music wasn't the greatest, but being theory driven as a bass player was like huge, right? I wanted to understand how it all worked, right? It's like so you got all your chords and shit. And I don't want to get too detailed about anything, but so then I James is playing guitar and I'm learning bass, and I took classical piano lessons as a kid, and so in order to play bass with James, I had to learn guitar, because James was more of just play how you feel, right? So he was like, I don't know what I'm doing, so I had to learn all the chords and everything, and be like, watch his hands and be like, oh, that's what you're doing. So then I'd play along. Yeah.
So you're like teaching him as you're learning, basically, both learning together, teaching each other.
Yeah, it was a really interesting adaptive experience. I would just come up with something because I heard it in my head and tried to play it on the guitar, but I didn't really understand what I was doing. And then John would tell me what the hell I was doing, and eventually it made more sense. And then eventually we started taking lessons with a teacher here in town, Yuhon Poom, and which was an awesome experience. Every day going down after school to a guy who lives right on the lake, and like big bay window with like a harpsichord in the window.
Wow.
And like that's where we learned. And this guy, I don't know, he looked like all he did was drink coffee and teach music. So, but
probably true.
And then he ended up doing that with us. We'd go in and he'd be like, "What do you want to learn today?" I'd be like, "I don't know, man, but I wrote this song." And he'd be like, "Yo, I'm just gonna teach you guys composition theory." So
that's an interesting point, because we sent you guys some questions to prepare for the show, and one of the things that you said was your specialty was composition. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I think it is like, composition in any sense is like, writing music. It's like, but from a standpoint of like, both John and I really like how John broke it down before, of like how he learned was of essentially harmonic analysis, which is like breaking down chords so that you can understand melody, harmony, and counterpoint and bring that into a song. And so composition is understanding different things of like how you write a Dante or a fugue. But more in a modern sense, we have like like a common rock song which follows like A B C kind of like format. You're just playing a part over and over, or a chord progression that repeats, and then you might have two or three different patterns that repeat over top with a melody and changing words. And that's like your basic rock or pop song. It's kind of stripped down to its essence.
It sounds to me like you guys have really not only broken this down to a science, but find passion in just building music for lack of a better word. Again, keep in mind, I'm not a musician in any way. A lot of the terms you're using, I have no idea what they mean. For example, a Dante, did I hear that right? A Dante?
Yeah, that's just it's
like literally a musical term for like the pace how you play something.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds to me like you guys have really, again, taken not obviously just a liking, but it's a passion of yours to be able to find these little intricacies in music, put them together, and compose them, for lack of a better words.
Yeah, it's just like the thirst for knowledge, I think, was something that was really instilled in us when we were younger. So, like, just finding the joy in learning something, I think that was something that really pushed us in music too, because you're like, oh wait, that's how that works, and you just become more inspired and just dig deeper and deeper into it. You know?
So when you're writing your music, you mentioned earlier that you were playing death metal in the townhouse. So obviously your musical styles, you've got obviously a very large musical taste. Do you find that you write in one style more than another, or are you able to adapt for whatever style it is that you're wanting to play, like whatever the outcome is?
I would personally say recently, like over the years, things have sort of like developed into their own kind of style. A lot of what I like to play is kind of like, most of the world really enjoys it right now too, is like R&B and funky stuff, being a bass player and stuff like that. So things sort of end up tending towards more of your tastes. And over the year, as you develop your style, things sort of become a lot more similar. But I would say in the past, we played and we played around with a lot of different genres and ideas. So, even if you listen to the Noolands, our music was kind of like, even though it was very similar to itself, it's kind of like all over the place within, we had like a gypsy jazz rock tune to a funk tune to, a rock ballad to, it's just jumping around.
You touched on a really, really good point there. Do you guys feel like music is almost pigeonholing people when it comes to trying to reach fame at this stage? Because as you mentioned, it seems like a lot of that popular music is very repetitive. It sounds very similar, and there's a lot less experimentation going on with a lot of what's popular. Do you feel like that's true, or am I just misinterpreting that?
Well, I would have to say that there's actually a bit of science to that. And as you like listen to sounds and stuff, and this was one of the lessons that I learned with our music teacher back in the day, was experimentation. You're going to run into things that are really like uncomfortable and don't sound good to your ear. So the more you listen to things that are like different and stuff, it becomes the norm to you. But what you hear around most of the time is stuff that's like more similar to your heart rate, right? Like that 4-4-6-8 beat, right? Like 4 on the floor, right? You got that. And like that's the reason why most of it is a lot similar, is because we keep finding that there's a pattern that people just want to naturally relate to, and like they're not necessarily thinking, 90% of people aren't going out there being like, oh, I'm like really into this song. Like I'm going like, this is all I'm doing is listening to this song right now and just dissolving in it. They want to put something on that gets them going, gets them moving. And what really does that is something that kind of matches your heart rate, which is that 4-4-6-8, 2-4-3-4 beat.
You kind of blew my mind with that. I'm not going to lie.
It's interesting too, though, because when you were talking about writing, your way of writing is so different than what I would always think writing would be. I mean, I was never really as a trained musician. I played the drums. Right?
Yeah.
I was a little.
I don't know if that's how you play the drums, Brian. I'm just throwing that out.
This is how I play the drums. Okay, listen to me. You ever see photos of me with drums? This is how I play. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point being, I don't ever consider myself when I wanted to write a song, it was just something. Oh, this sounds really cool, and I'd kind of think, all right, write that down, and then I'd start to think, okay, what kind of music, what kind of words would go with this, and I would just kind of spitball and throw stuff down, and nothing ever materialized. But the way you guys are talking about writing a song, it's a completely different thing. There's a pattern. You got to fill in this certain equation, I guess.
You can break it down to an equation. Like sometimes it could just be like a fleeting melody in your head, and like you're trying to catch it, but you don't know how. And that like simple like equation can sometimes like be that net that catches that. You know what I mean?
It's so much like photography, though. I mean, when you got to learn everything about photography, and there's always new things to learn and new styles to learn. But if you break it down to the basic as if, aperture, shutter speed, ISO, focal length, and you can break it down to that pattern, you'll learn what kind of things you like. It's so, I don't know, art, right? It's all parallels. It's all fulfilling the same kind of needs in such different ways. And like music, I could listen to something and just tears flow, and you see an amazing photo, and it can make you sit there and stare at it for an hour. It's just incredible, the power that just something that you can sit and think up can just achieve, especially as a teacher too. That's something I always respect. And I see somebody who's willing to give it back, to put their student in front of them. And one of the things I saw that, I don't know which of you, I think it was James, you wrote it, when you see a student do better than your, you get to see them in their path. Where did I read? In creative path.
Yeah, and they're like following their dreams. Actually, like recently, it was actually really awesome.
Seeing past students following your dreams. That's right.
Just before COVID, I had gone to like the local bar here, the Fox, for where a lot of the rock shows happened, and one of the bands playing had a couple of my old students in it, and one of them came up to me and he was like, "Yo, man, I just want to say we're here doing this because of you." And I was like, "Oh man,
that's huge. That's huge."
I was like,
so
"Oh
amazing.
shoot, got me, man." And yeah, I don't know. I haven't taught in a long time. I miss it, and it would be awesome to teach again. But at the same time, I'm enjoying like just teaching myself.
That's the best teaching.
On the flip side, it's like I'm still teaching. I go to a good job here. I teach at the Barrie Music School with lots of other locally famous musicians, and it's just a joy. Wonder, like, hanging out with kids, teaching them stuff. Sometimes sometimes it can be a little frustrating, but at the end of the day, like, it's teaching somebody that a little bit of hard work and discipline can really make your dreams pay off.
What age group do you work with, John?
All over, but I teach mostly beginner students, so kids and stuff. So mainly like 8 and up.
Cool.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, John, I just want to throw this out there. They're probably a lot easier to teach than I would be.
No, but it's just like each person is a little different, and I'm learning myself, right? There's no real one cut or dry way to explain something to somebody or to show them how to do it, right? Because the creative mind works in many different ways, right? So in trying to communicate these things and these patterns to people, to give them the tools in order to express themselves, is just a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's all
And I
about
bet you
giving-
have those moments of like, aha, when you break through to a student. I've experienced that myself with photography, teaching classes at Henry's and online live streams that I've done with Brian. And when you see your students achieve, a nice photo or a song or whatever it may be, it's really rewarding to see that. So I'm sure you guys have experienced that.
Good for you both for paying it forward that way. I think a lot of Canadian artists, though, feel that same way. And I know you guys are part of a music scene. You guys have been with your band, the Noolands. You had been with them for a long time. So, of course, you're going to have your scene of other musicians. But you have to feed off each other. You have to be able to be inspired by everybody in your circle. And what was your circle like when you were in the band and now? Like, are you still in that same musical circle?
I would say it was like, okay, to explain what our circle was like, it was pretty awesome. I mean, like in the sense of, and kind of always was, even back in high school when we had a band before, it was very like free flowing. Like music was like a way of talking to each other, and it's like not in like a conveying of ideas or like structured like sentences or anything, but like we conveyed emotions to each other, and it was fun to like work through ideas to get with each other, and everybody would always kind of like write. So imagine like a game of catch but with music. So like we're kind of tossing a ball around, and all like it always felt like that. It never felt like someone was leading. It was always like really give and take, everybody sharing ideas and like learning together as well.
And like taking that into the Newlands and the idea, and then the community of musicians that we were with, like hanging out at the Fox. What a wonderful community of a place for local music. It's sad to see it go, but Shane, what a great guy. He always tried to have live music three times a week, 4 times a week, all original bands. So, he hated cover bands. He hated the whole idea of cover music. And he always wanted to just get people and their original music out there, to the point where the Fox ended up being a little bit of an international tour stop for a lot of up-and-coming bands. So I ended up seeing a lot of bands from around the world. Just people like you or I, just starting a band in their backyard, and then getting like a tour deal, and all of a sudden now they're from Australia, but they're here in Barrie, Ontario, playing a 100-person capacity bar for some reason, But it was great. It was obviously, a great community of people, It was really the place for the wayward soul, and I'm still in contact with a lot of those people.
That's cool. That's too bad. Why did they close? Is this a COVID situation that they had to?
Yeah.
Man.
Well,
that's
they lived and breathed live music, so
yeah,
couldn't have it. So
I have to say that's one thing I really, really miss is live music. I like rock and hard rock, but any genre of music, if it's live, I'm totally immersed. So do you do you both live in Barrie right now?
Yep.
Yeah. So do you find that you're collaborating using any online tools? Like obviously we're on StreamYard, but there are other online video conferencing. Do you guys do any sort of jamming online with other musicians, or do you just do it when you're teaching or with yourself?
To be honest, since the Noolands of last year have had a bit of a Noolands ended.
Hiatus.
Haven't really jammed much with people. Jamming online through streaming services is a little tricky. But since we're twin brothers, we can still get together.
Sure.
So we get together every once in a while and jam and go over old ideas and jam some tunes that we know. And stuff.
Keep
I hadn't
the dream
expected you to
alive.
say it was going to be telepathically.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm downloading one right now. Nice. But
Text
no,
the other
I
one
was,
at 2 a.m. Stop it.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah. So with the streaming stuff, like online tools, I found like the latency like bugs me a lot, and it's hard to find one that works proper. Like if I'm gonna stay here and like if I'm gonna play you guys a song, like that's one thing versus like trying to jam with each other online, which is very hard.
Well, and it's got to be hard for you guys too, being the audiophile, so to speak, that you guys are, to have to listen to music through a streaming service, right? Because once you get onto the internet, like you said, at this point, the audio becomes completely choppy. It sounds terrible. You're not getting anything close to the real sound. So at that point, that's got to annoy you more than anything.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, I've also had a lot of fun, like just getting together with old friends recently and just kind of messing around with some recording equipment, making up ideas, and hopefully something comes of it. I'm like hoping to put out some more music, but it's a longer creative process. Hopefully we can get some really cool stuff happening. I've been working with MIDI as well. And like, there's a lot of newer options for musicians out there if they're willing to sell their music and work that way.
That's definitely been a learning curve for James and myself. We've always been a little more the old school play music in person kind of jam, analog instruments sort of thing. Like all this recording music and MIDI kind of stuff is a bit of a new world for us. It's like not some of the other guys in the band took care of a lot of that kind of stuff. So recording our own music is still been a process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the whole COVID situation has forced everybody to stretch into maybe not their comfort zones, pushing yourself out there a little bit more and trying to be a little bit more creative. That's why we're starting this podcast, is pushing ourselves a little bit and trying to learn a little bit more about people's personal expressions and what makes people creative. And in the hard times, what keeps you going and what keeps you motivated to create and to help other people. And I mean, the Noolands splitting up, that's got to have been a hard time. I don't know if you guys want to get into it. Is that something you wanted to talk about at all?
I'll just say it was. It's tough when you have 5 guys with 5 different opinions, and the beauty of it is that for a time, it worked real well. But it's like all things in this world, things come to an end, and it's one of the hard truths of life, and that's one of the things that help us to continue making expressions. You know, writing about that loss, possibly, or something.
There you
like
go.
Mm-hmm. So kind of getting away from that for a minute, obviously in the last year you've had COVID take over and it's disrupted everything. You guys had both mentioned that over the last year you haven't really been working with a lot of other people musically. Has that been more because of COVID as well? Do you feel that if it wasn't for COVID, you guys might have started reaching out to other people, started to try to work with more artists, or is it simply just one of those things where since the split, you guys are more just focusing on what you want to do?
I think it's a little bit of both. I've definitely had like a lot of other drummers and musicians have been asking to get together and do stuff, and that would be awesome. And I'm definitely gonna see where those avenues take me. But at the same time, I've been also focused on the I guess hermiting at home and just working on myself, you know, and like bettering myself and learning some skills that I didn't have before. And hopefully, when this is all said and done, kind of coming out of the cocoon and, you know, being a lot stronger for it.
Mm-hmm.
I do really appreciate that, because there's a lot of creative people right now struggling, being stifled by being stuck at home. And I know I was home for 2 months from work, and if I didn't have something to do that day, whether it was like, you know, trying to crochet something, or, you know, taking some pictures, or cleaning up the house, fixing furniture, building furniture, you know, whatever it may be, creating things in the kitchen. If I didn't have that, it would have been immensely harder. So I feel like music is a good tool for that, for sure, for you guys. And I'm really excited to see what comes of these potentially new groups that you might be working out together with. So it's awesome. Did you guys want to talk a little bit about your experience with Noolands previous to the breakup? Because I know you guys had a lot of really, really cool shows and cool releases and stuff like that. So I feel like the listeners would love to hear some about that.
And on that note as well, I also want to hear a story about the Fox, because it sounds like that place has some history in it.
The Fox. All right, well, we could tell many stories about the Fox and the Noolands, but because we played there quite a bit, it was kind of like, you know, I felt like we were the house band, but at the same time, there was all sorts of other bands always playing there as well from the local scene. So it kind of felt like family, you know, just going and doing the same thing. But I think the best way to describe the Fox and the night at the Fox is, you know, we all live kind of downtown, so we'd get together at one of or each other's houses and grab the instruments and walk down to the Fox early and set up, walk in, and Shane and Glenda are there at the bar. The owners might be just Shane or Glenda, and they're opening up, and we just set the instruments up and on the stage, and then have a few beers and a night of silly just jokes and pranks with each other. Mostly just jokes and a lot of joints and a lot of music. I think I can remember just like nights of shots being brought to us on stage, and like me one time, it was New Year's, my mom had pulled out champagne bottles, and I think we had 4 glasses of champagne, and I went into the back and grabbed my guitar because I didn't know if I would remember how to play the songs. I'm on board with this. And then the band came back looking for me, and we got on, and somehow my hands remembered, but I don't know how it happened. And I also had a concussion that night from
Ooh.
I had fallen and knocked myself out, and had a wicked headache the whole time. But for some reason, that was still like the most amazing night.
Maybe it was just the adrenaline was going so much at that point. It just everything just flowed right.
Well, the doctor had actually told me not to go and be now around lights and loud music.
Oh,
and it was New Year's, and he also told me not to drink. So I did all three things I shouldn't have done.
I think that's part
we
of
live
the
to tell the tale.
Yeah, I'm no doctor, but I think that might have done it.
Well,
Yeah.
like so like what's like I got lots of crazy stories, or lots of kind of cool stories, some inappropriate stories. What kind of what do you want to know? Because I used to work at the Fox, right? And so
Right?
Well, not even just the Fox. Like, do you guys have stories with the Newlands at the Fox? Just something wild, but not wild enough that you could hear it at work.
But those aren't the fun stories to tell.
That's fair.
Right, so
We do
How
need
about
to
this?
stay safe for work here, in case.
Yeah.
we had driven all the way to Montreal. My mom had driven us there, and we had gotten a hotel. And the hotel was like halfway across like miles away from where we were playing. So we had to wait around for equipment drop off and stuff. Anyway, we get there, and there's a huge festival going on in Montreal, and no one came to our show. So we're there playing to the other bands.
yeah,
but we
the people
didn't
who
care.
organized the show had a house party, and all their friends went to the house party.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And there was like a huge like rock festival going on in Montreal.
Was
that
it
had
Metal?
no idea.
It was Metal Montreal or something like that. Yeah?
Oh,
Yeah,
Heavy
so-
Montreal or Heavy? Yeah.
Yeah. So and then we were playing at the Piranha, and
Which is a metal bar.
yeah, but we're like a rock band with a couple like folk bands opening up, so it was not the right.
Not the right venue.
No, but we had a great time, and everybody was wonderful, and we just lived it up. And the sound guy told us to come back on the night that there wasn't, a festival. And then my mom fell asleep, and we had to wait 3 hours for my mom to come pick us up, which was really cool because we met Anthrax. So
Oh, well,
Oh, that's all right.
Awesome.
that's awesome. That's awesm.
That
A little
makes
Charlie-
Yeah.
That's
Charlie
what I call a
Brown.
happy accident.
Turns out Anthrax was just drinking at the bar there, and Aaron went in. We're all sitting outside. At this point, I'm being a little pissed off for some reason. I forget, but I remember being pissed off. And Aaron goes in to grab another drink because we're just sitting there waiting. He ends up doing some tequila shots with the guys from Anthrax, and some random guy at the bar starts speaking to him in Arabic or something like that, trying to start a fight with him. And Aaron said something. One of the guys in Anthrax was like telling him what he was saying, and then I guess Aaron just got out of there. He was like, "This guy's gonna beat me up or something," so he just left.
Jeez.
And,
Wow.
and that was us meeting Anthrax.
I'm a little jealous you got to hang with Anthrax. They were one of the bands that I used to listen to a lot in my youth, and still now and again I listen to them.
Did I just gather that Anthrax knows Arabic?
I think so.
Possibly.
Anthrax
I don't know if it was Arabic.
was teaching Aaron Arabic. I don't know, but that's a good story. I like that.
But it's clearly they're bilingual. We're clearly learning that Anthrax is bilingual, so that's the takeaway here.
They're good at negotiations.
I mean, Aaron mightn't have been drunk and just didn't know what language they were speaking.
Might have
it could have been
The guy
speaking
was just
English.
asking for an autograph. Yeah.
There was
So I
tequila involved, right?
real quick, you were going back to the Fox. What's some of the bands you guys remember seeing there? Because you talked about there being bands from all around the world, it being like this international tourist location, basically.
Two bands. One you might possibly know, and another one. What was the? Oh, was it? There's one band. I'm kicking myself for not knowing their name. They're from Scotland. Great guys, great, wonderful, great metal band. They're from Glasgow.
I don't know, John.
Anyway, another one was a band that we had the pleasure to play with, and they do a lot of stuff in Toronto now. Harmonies. They had some of the guys originally from around here, but they moved to
Brazil.
Brazil for was it Brazil or was it was the other one?
I think it was Brazil.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Anyway, they messaged us because they saw our Grenadine press release or something. Their manager had set it up, and they thought it was like a good mix between music and everything. And yeah,
That's awesome.
it was a cool experience meeting them. It was like they showed up at James's place, and before the show, we all came to like hang out and chill. And I remember being excited to like smoke weed with them, and their parents show up, and we've got like this whole like spread is to get ready to smoke weed and party before the show. And their parents are with them, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna go get pizza," and they just left.
On that note,
I'm leaving.
Okay, so I was in a band in Oshawa called Pizza, yum. I was in a band called 40 Cases Later, and that ought to tell you the kind of band we were back in Oshawa. And there was a lot. I mean, the reason I asked you about your community and the other bands, because there was a lot of that going on when I played with these guys. There was 3 or 4 other bands in the area, and obviously marijuana was used all over the place. Drinking was used all over the place. It was a culture of drugs in that whole music scene. The question I have is, do the drugs help the music, or is the music, I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just, do you find drugs are necessary?
Is that the scene? Is that the scene? Is that kind of...
Is it necessary? Like, I know when I was playing, I mean, the whole culture, the band was called 40 Cases Later. We got the name of the band after we drank 40 cases of beer. We sat there playing and smoking and, doing the whole thing. I mean, that was the culture of the band. But
I would have to say that the drugs are not necessarily necessary. And if they are necessary, you're doing it wrong. They're kind of like the cherry on top, And you don't have to have it. Some people don't like cherries, so don't give them the cherry. So it's
I think it boils right back to that old tale of everything's. It's all about moderation, right? And it's all about how I think a lot of the use you're seeing. It's prevalent in, like, if you're talking about just basic weed and drinking, that's prevalent in a lot of society at this stage. That's not just the music industry. That's you talk to the guy that works in your car. You talk to the guy that works at Walmart. It doesn't matter who it is. The majority, I think, are either having a couple of drinks or smoking a couple. At least here legally in Canada. But once you get into the harder stuff, I don't think you're seeing that as prevalent. Unless you get into, it's hard to say, but I don't think, in my opinion, it's. Sorry, go on.
I would say it's more so about the change in perspective or the escape itself that enable you to feel a different way or hear something differently or see something differently. And Louis Armstrong wouldn't play a show without weed. It's the fact that most people don't know. Like, it's like he wouldn't, if he wasn't allowed to smoke weed, he wouldn't play.
Yeah. You look at Mitch Hedberg, same thing.
Yeah, but I recently I quit drinking for over a year now.
Congratulations.
Not because of COVID. I mean, there's a lot of people who jumped on that whole thing. It was personal reasons. I got involved in a lot of. I was a cook. I was in the restaurant scene and the bar scene a lot, and I mean that whole world is riddled with addiction problems. So personally, I got out of the cooking industry. I was a cook for 12 years, and
wow.
Yeah,
you got out of it for the reason, and that's actually where I was going with the question. Is we've had conversations in the past where addiction has really, taken valuable people from people's lives away from them. Our last conversation with Ralston was pretty heavy with the scene in Aurelia and so on and so forth. Is this something that you guys experienced in your own scene? A lot of addiction bringing people down rather than the music scene keeping them up?
Well, definitely. I've seen a lot of bands. The band is secondary to the idea that a lot of people get caught up in that idea of being like partying and being famous, and that's sort of like the facade of what it is to be a musician, rather than what it is to actually play music. So I saw a lot of bands and a lot of people, even myself included, you get lost in the escapism from everything. You numb yourself to all these things, and you think that's what it's about. Oh, rock and roll. Oh, you gotta have sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? But it's not necessarily the case, and certain things end up getting put by the wayside when something becomes more important to you than the actual creative process. It becomes a detriment, really, to what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, makes sense. Heavy, yeah. I mean, that's what it's about, right? We're finding our voice, we're finding our personal expression, we're finding what is so important to us to fight through these battles and to deal with the ups and the downs, just because we love music or because we love photography or because we love art or woodworking or whatever your creative expression is. To love something with so much passion that you would give up. You got to admit it. Addictions are hard to give up. And addictions don't have to be to drugs. They could be to routine. They could be to damaging people. They could be to so many different things. Extremely hard to give up when that's your comfort zone. So kudos to you, John, for backing away from something you knew was harmful.
It definitely wasn't easy, and I think I'm thankful to the community of friends and people that I do have in the music scene, and some of the people who opened my eyes to like the direction I was going. Even right now, may not be on good terms with Brandon from the Noolands necessarily, but he was definitely somebody who inspired me to make some better choices in my life. Brandon's been sober for quite some time. He was making changes to be a little more professional in the band, and I think those had, despite us not, like I said, not really hanging out a lot anymore. I am thankful that he had that kind of influence on me.
I was just gonna say, that's incredible, man. That without touching on any of that, the fact that you were able to still see some form of an influence and say, look, like, regardless of what we disagree about, I completely adore what you've done here, and I want to make that same change because I've seen it better your life. So that's huge. That's absolutely huge.
Yeah, man. I think it's been hard with a lot of people in the scene, addiction, and I've seen it kind of take a hold of a lot of people, and I don't want to fall into that. And I think that's why over COVID, it's not even been necessarily me dealing with any addiction, but other than just like self-improvement. And I think everybody can take it at that. And instead of it being like best advice I can say, instead of it being like a huge chunk of like working towards like, I'm going to quit right now or something, make it like baby steps. I'm just going to like the next couple of hours, like don't even look like further into the day. Just look to like a few minutes ahead and, set yourself up for victory that way.
Yep. Don't burden yourself.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Exactly. I want to ask, do you guys have any inspiration that you draw from, like either inspirational people, music, anything like that?
I would have to say for myself, musically, I've kind of always been inspired by Bruce Cockburn. Just like his whole journey, like grew up listening to his music. It's kind of always affected me. I may not write music like that right now, but I've always loved it, and his musicality has always pushed me. other things that influenced John and I, kind of holistically, I guess would say, we've always been kind of spiritually inclined in trying to understand other spiritual beliefs. And I guess from early forms of our music, we always kind of like tried to talk about different things like that in like our death metal music, talking about samsara, Buddhist concept, or bringing in moksha and Hindu stuff, and just learning all about it and kind of building a bridge of acceptedness to everyone.
That's awesome. I really, really like that.
Yeah, I do too. It's a great way to be very inclusive, and it's great to kind of pull inspiration from different places that you wouldn't actually, expect to pull from. Really it helps you stand out from the crowd, I think. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
And I mean, in the sense of spiritually, it's kind of interesting because if you look at Bach and Beethoven and Mozart, you look at all of them, where did they start learning music? Was in the church. But then, so you take that spiritual concept of it, or like where people started and their musical concept started from, then you go to somewhere like India, where the ragas and stuff were taught by yogis and stuff to musicians, or out further east into Asia, or into the different scales and ideas that they came, like their philosophers came up with. And it's like just really interesting that music has always kind of had that kind of
relationship to spirituality and
yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious too. Was it a natural thing for you guys to be drawn to the spiritual side of things, or did you have an interest in, the different religions, different spiritualities prior to drawing this passion for music? What kind of came first, the chicken or the egg in that scenario?
I don't know, man.
The chegg.
Because it sounds like that's something that you guys both just grew up with naturally, and like you had a passion for, an interest obviously, and a passion for music, and then it sounds like the spirituality and these religious beliefs they were a natural thing because of your desire to create music. It was almost hand in hand.
There's one point I remember when we were in elementary school or starting high school. I guess like our families have always been quite religious. My dad took us to church every Sunday. My mom's dad was an Anglican minister, ordained by the Archbishop of Canterbury. He lived in England for a while. Wow. But he was never really around in our lives. He lived in England. We never saw him that much. Yeah. But where was I going with this thought?
Yeah, but Mom, on the other hand, our mother, was always very like open about different things, always trying different. I guess we always had like a pagan celebration of like almost witches, like coming together at a fire and like giving a meal for the ancestors.
It was prevalent then. It was prevalent in your life then.
Yeah, growing up, and like my mom was like, she went from being Wiccan to Buddhist to trying this and that, and so it was always around. And I was kind of like, what does this all mean? It
just opens you up to so many different experiences. It just gives you so much diversity and just in perspective. And you said the word earlier, it's about perspective, right? So you're seeing things from such a different place. One of the things I always teach when I teach photography, when I'm trying to help people understand how, you don't have to compare yourself to other people and just do what you want to do. And my whole hashtag is I shoot for me and just do for you. One of the things I always talk about is just to be able to understand who you are and just do you, right? Understand where you're coming from, but how your influences influence that. From day one, when you're born, this experience made you do this, and this experience made you appreciate this. And nobody has that same experience or that same perspective. But you guys being twins, I mean, that's pretty cool. People with that same life perspective.
I totally dig what you're saying because, like, and it's also like, what's the guy's name? It's like almost a Marxist, like, sociological idea of that. Everybody kind of comes in, and like you could have like even John and I, we have shared a lot of the same experiences, but our outlook and our opinions can tend to differ still. So it's really an interesting idea, and then the more I talk to people, the more I see that. And really the exciting thing is like taking it and knowing that, everybody's truth, like I can't know anything 100% for sure except for what I've experienced. And me talking about my experiences, you can only trust that.
Mm-hmm.
And take from that what you will, kind of thing. But I think that's really important, and we can learn from trusting each other's stories of our experiences, and that being an experience in itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our nature to be nurtured.
I like that.
Totally.
I like that.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah,
That's
but going to tie it right back to what you said there too about not comparing not comparing yourselves to other people and stuff like that. A huge thing for me the past few years has been this idea that you don't have to be anything. Your value is inherent.
Perfect isn't perfect.
Yeah,
That's what I would say.
Yeah, two of the most important creatures on our planet you don't even think about every day. And they're seemingly small and insignificant. And if they didn't exist, we wouldn't exist. And what they do all day is pretty much just like hang around and do nothing. And you wouldn't think that they're important. But worms and diatoms.
I thought you were talking about me and my cat, actually.
Yeah,
around, nothing.
Yeah, so I've been trying to like really, really express that, and I'm trying to tell my students this is like, you are important simply by existing.
That's amazing.
And no one can take that from you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
hard to believe it, though.
Yeah, really.
You got to even either go through something for that to sink in, or have somebody like yourselves be able to explain it to a student, a youngster, when they need to hear it in a way that it sinks in. And that's one reason I'm super impressed that both of you are teachers, and you're still teaching the kids. I love teaching like Michael Art Gallery 12 to 15-year-old kids coming up in April. I love that. You have an opportunity to give somebody an experience that they wouldn't have had otherwise, that they could then take and do who knows what with. So that's just awesome. James, I had a question for you. Sorry to conversation. What is MIDI? You mentioned that you're taking time to learn MIDI. I understand back in the day when I played the drums, and you can have like a MIDI drum set, and it's all like computer. You can connect it and do sound samples and stuff. Like, how are you utilizing that?
I didn't even understand that. So,
yeah. So how I utilize that is like I have like a little MIDI controller here. Like it's got like.
I see TikTok videos all the time when you can sample and loop, and is that the kind of stuff?
So like. Yeah, but like, so I can take like virtual instruments and like just play whatever I want, like melodies, and like say it could be like a whole symphony. It's like I want to have like violins or cellos doing something, and it's like it's just a virtual instrument. So I can like write, or I can pull up a sheet of music, like music score, and score out the music, and then have the MIDI play it out that way. But
so
yeah,
MIDI,
it's fun.
MIDI is basically just the digitized signal of that sounds or whatever you're doing, right? So they take the digital signal from like a keyboard and they send it into the computer, and they use that to convert it to whatever sort of plugins you're using in your computer to change the sound. So with today's technology, you could basically use a keyboard to play any instrument you want.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I just got to learn the keyboard.
You don't even need to learn it. There's like sequencers, so you could press one button and then it just runs through a scale. It's like
I would never disrespect you guys like that.
But then there becomes the art of knowing the program, and then what is it that you're playing an instrument? Are you playing the program, and what is the art form then? Is it programming?
So
there's still even in something like that. Sorry, go on.
Does programming then become an instrument?
Exactly. Yeah, I was just alluding to that. To me, it's you guys will even see something as like the MIDI and just go, yeah, you can learn from that. Whether you're creating your own sound or using an instrument and knowing an instrument, you can still find other ways to learn music, understand music, and be creative. So I really, really respect that about you guys.
To raise this back to Aurora's question there, somebody who actually really inspires me is one of my biggest influences musically is Victor Wooten. And he has a great book that I would recommend to anybody to read called The Music Lesson. And he kind of uses like a lot of these concepts where you take seemingly unrelated experiences and apply them to music or what your creative process. You know, he has at one point in the book his music teacher, whether read the book, takes him out tracking animals, and he has no idea what the hell this has to do with music, but he's learning how to recognize the different animal footprints and stuff like that, and the guy's literally using tracking animals to teach him about music.
So Mr. Miyagi of music.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you gotta read the book. The book's amazing.
It's a captivating book that's like super easy to read, and like even if you don't play music, it's just a wonderful story. I would definitely recommend it.
So as we're getting to the end of our session, because we normally go for about an hour, I wanted to ask Ryan, Brian, Mark, if you have any final questions for James or John.
Mark?
Actually, I've just really enjoyed listening to you guys and talk about that. I dabble in music myself. I'm by no means a musician. I'm basically a guy that collects guitars that plays a little bit. But I certainly I could appreciate your tales of being in the band and the getting into the substances and things. Well, while I was in a small basement band, it was more beer than anything that we drank, but I certainly got that. So it really, really hit home for me that the band really became a reason to drink, and it wasn't really a creative outlet anymore. And that's when we sort of fell apart. But definitely really good to hear that, you're getting those, that inspiration to stop drinking yourself and getting clean, and love hearing that your influences for your music are largely spiritual based. There's a lot of different things out there that can influence people and can spawn creativity, and it's really neat, specifically to hear that you went off into so many different religions to get that inspiration. So that was excellent, and I just want to say thank you for being with us tonight, especially on short notice. That was great. Thank you.
So I wanted to say thank you again too. I'm not sure how you got, how much you guys have, not sure if you guys know how much you guys have inspired me over the years. Your passion for music, your drive to learn and teach people has definitely inspired me. I actually have a book here today that you told me to get at one point when I was starting to learn the guitar, and I used this and I referred to it on when I was learning, and it really did help me with the basics and stuff. So
don't knock it for dummies.
Yeah. And I was surprised when you I was surprised when you asked me to get this one specifically, but it was like right after our conversation. I don't know if you'll remember when this happened, but it was at Uncle Will's house, your dad's house, and you guys were playing in the backyard, and I wanted to learn guitar. I wanted to get more into music, and I had a conversation with you, and right after I'm like, Mom, we gotta go to Chapters. I gotta get this book. And yeah, so I want to let you guys know that I did that. Even though it wasn't my main creative path, you really did inspire me. So thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's I'm very touched knowing that, and I'm happy you shared that with us. I'm glad you bought that book. And if you ever need any other books, I have a plethora of wonderful books about music and guitar. So
awesome. Good to know. I mean, I'm close now. I'm just in Newmarket, so.
I was just going to say, if only she had some family members that just could.
So right before we wrap up, we have two questions that we
I
asked.
have one last question. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
You don't mind? If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Coming from a family of musicians myself, and having to, when I was a kid, being forced to sing in a quartet. I shouldn't say forced. I had a great time. Of course, I was a ham. But anyway, did you guys ever get the opportunity to play with the whole family? Like, did your other siblings play, or was it just the two of you that had the passion to continue together?
So
I got to sing with the Dapper Dans in California, by the way. Like the Dapper Dans. Nothing? Nobody? No, nothing? Yeah. Barbershop. Come on. Why would you know anything about that? But to my mother, it was a huge deal. And I was just a little kid. And here I am with my family singing. It made me feel great as a little kid singing with my family. So I don't know. That's the question. Did you guys get that opportunity to do the whole family thing?
Like every year, I guess up until like COVID, like we go to our Uncle Joe's on Christmas. And he's got like a drum kit in the basement. I mean, it's usually ends up being like, you know, we all don't know the same songs or something. We jam a little and then it's something that happens. But over the years, we've all actually had a chance to play music together.
Nice.
We played in a band with my dad for some church fundraiser years ago. And
we played a show with subbed in for our uncle's band one year. And played with two of our uncles at a show that actually the Noolands also played. There's a big little festival out in Guildford that they always put on. And
Nice.
We actually did something together once for it was under an unfortunate circumstance, but during our grandmother's funeral.
Yeah,
we played and sang songs with that, and after the fact too. So that was kind of cool.
I think it's always just been something that, you know, like some people play board games, and we still also play board games. But like when you've got a bunch of musicians or people who are not necessarily musicians but musically inclined, you know, you're gonna have some jam sessions or we go do some stuff together, you know, or say.
Yeah, I guess like my last comment on the night there would basically be, it sounds like it's not just your household that you grew up with that was musical, it was your entire family, or at least a majority of your family that all had some sort of musical interest or was musically inclined, which was quite the opposite of my family.
Yeah, it was just that everywhere I looked, it was there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to relate it back spiritually, saying that music's it's everywhere. Look at all the creation stories, be science or religious myth, right? The Egyptians literally had a song that sang the world into existence. In Christianity, we say the Word was with God, and God spoke us into existence. He used His voice, sound, and relate that back to science. It's the Big Bang. It's like vibration. Vibration is what holds our world together.
Yeah, why aren't all the planets falling constantly through space with that, and staying in one spot? Well, actually, there's evidence to suggest that it's resonance, and each planet actually has its own resonance and its own sound, and even the stars and everything. So there's the celestial harmonies up there, whether you want to believe in them as some spiritual force, but they are actually physically out there, and they're some sort of celestial harmony.
I would much rather believe that there's some massive, powerful figure out in the world playing the world like it's a big organ, and every planet has its own resonant frequency, and it's just like whoa, whoa, whoa. I'd rather believe that
awesome.
than a lot of the other crazy conspiracies that I might hear out there. I'll tell you that.
I mean, Beethoven said the music is the electric soil in which the soul lives, breathes, and creates. So I think it's our basic form of communication. And of course, if I'm going to play a song that makes me happy, you're going to feel happy. If it's going to make me cry, it's going to make you cry. So,
and then we'll both remember that moment until we're old and almost dead.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There you go.
Love it. All right, Aurora.
Okay, so we always ask our guests 2 questions. So first question, what's your jam? What song are you listening to right now, kind of on a day-to-day basis that gets you going?
I'm curious on this answer.
Yeah. What's your jam?
My jam right now is Samurai Cop by Dave Matthews. It has been for a while, but I still fucking love that song. Sorry, pardon my language, but it's a great tune. It's,
Awesome.
Music elicits emotion.
Petey from the Newlands, or saxophone player, he came by the other day and he showed me Tosh Sultana's new album. Oh, go check it out. Sick.
Okay.
That, and if you're ever wondering, I have one song that plays in my head rent free, and it's Thomas the Tank Engine. I don't know. I don't know why.
You know what, John? I just got that out, and you put it back in. So thank you so much. I really owe you on that.
Nice.
Do. Oh, we can. Actually, I don't think we can do that.
No. That's amazing. And the other question is, what is your tool of the trade? What is something that you use to help you compose music, create music, teach music, whatever it may be? What's that one tool that's your go-to?
Over there.
Your guitar.
Yeah, right there.
I'm curious what kind of guitar it is.
That's a Yamaha Pacifica. You can buy it brand new for $200. It's a piece of junk, but I love the way it sounds. So I've had it since I was 14. So
I'm laughing because
That's
my
awesome.
dad tried to buy one of those yesterday. He was looking for one and couldn't find it. He came home with a Squire Stratocaster.
Well, the Pacifica is it's actually, out of all of the inexpensive guitars, it is one of the best rated guitars you can get.
Yeah.
So
Interestingly enough, is that specific one probably that model is one of their best ones that they made. Over the years, they started downgrading on how they made the Pacifica, and it's not as good as it used to be. James tried recording for one of our albums on a couple different guitars. We ended up using that guitar. It's just so weird.
That's awesome.
I end up just sort of playing piano. There's nothing. It's like if I'm ever stuck on an idea or something like that, I find I just I take a break, go for a walk. But normally I'll sit there and just jam it out until it's out on the piano. That's where I first start writing something, and then I'll work from there.
That's your native tongue.
Yeah. Years ago it'd be like I had to have a joint, smoke a joint, play some music, but
still doesn't.
Good to hear, man. That's super good to hear. It all depends on too. It's again, it goes back to that moderation. I've had that same battle, and it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong at any stage, John, but you've had that similar battle where you were able to still be creative, but you found that you were relying on, whether it be joints or a couple of beers, way too much to the stage that you've had to step back now and just say, no, you know what, I want to go back to sticking in my creative mindset. I don't need that joint. Whether it hurts or not, you don't really want to go back to relying on that to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's like you can only look in one book so many times before you know the words by memory, right? So it's finding inspiration in there is done.
I think actually something that's pushed me in a different direction is learning that all states of mind are obtainable just by yourself. You can tap in whatever, the cannabinoids in your brain. There are cannabinoid sensors, and that's why you get high, is that cannabinoid goes into that sensor in your brain that's already there for a chemical that your body makes, and it goes in there and does a thing. But if you learn how to meditate properly or do whatever, all states of mind are obtainable without substance. Because your body does it.
Very cool. Very cool. So I have one final question for you guys. You guys could have your own each answer to it, whatever it may be. But every episode, we ask our viewers to challenge themselves with something that'll help boost their creativity, something that they'll have fun with and enjoy, and they can try it out for a week, whatever it may be. So what is your challenge to the viewers of the Expressions podcast?
My challenge is is what I like to call my 420 challenge, and that's not go home and smoke a ton of weed, unless you want to. It's pick 4 exercises, like whether it be push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and calf raises, or whatever else, and do 20 reps of those. It's like really small workout. Just do 20. If you can't do 20, do 10. Whatever. Just do that once or twice a day. Just do that. It's easy. And also for me, sometimes, like if I'm feeling like it, it's called the 420 workout. So I'll do 20 push-ups, have a toke. Do 20 sit-ups, have a toke. Do 20 squats, have a toke. You know,
so like a little treat at the end.
It's a reward process, exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same. Like, you know, just get active. You know, I challenge you to get up early, be active. I find that like those are the things that'll inspire you. You'll find something while you were doing that. Something will come across your mind. Yeah, it's the best.
I guess to add to that, your body is your subconscious. So if you're finding that you're stuck, right, your body is literally the physical representation of your subconscious. So if you can move your body and start getting moving, sometimes that's just enough to get you out of a funk and get you doing something, even if it's 20 push-ups or 5. Awesome. Who knows?
Yeah, that's great. Studies have actually shown that the endorphins your body releases when you're exercising can bring you up out of that funk, or out of help bring you out of depression and things like that. So that's great.
That's awesome. Why like super buff dudes are always like jacked and super excited, like go. Because they're always, I don't know. I'm just talking.
Well, they might also be doing some other things, but I don't know.
That's awesome. I want to thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate that. Just like I said earlier, you guys have been an inspiration to me for a long time, and I'm not sure you knew that. Before we end the podcast, I do want to...
Happy birthday, Freda!
Yeah, it's my mom's birthday today, so...
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Yeah, so yes, she'll hear this a bit later, a few weeks later, but I will make sure that you guys shouted her out in the video, make sure she knows that. It's awesome. Thanks for mentioning that, by the way. At the end of each podcast, we talk about a few causes that we're all very passionate about. For me, myself, I'm extremely involved in the Henry's Foundation, which is a new Canadian not-for-profit charity based on putting mental health into focus for Canadians. And basically what we do is we gather donations for Kids Help Phone, CAMH, Jack.org, and other Canadian mental health institutions in Vancouver, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. As we've talked about in many previous podcasts, being creative is a great outlet for people who are struggling. And for me, myself, I've struggled with things. I've had close family members struggle with things, and being creative has always been an outlet. So for me, it's a cause that's really near and dear to my heart. For Brian as well, he's been super involved with that. We wouldn't have raised as much money as we have for the charity, which is over $5,000 now, and in our store alone, not even other stores that we worked at. So it's been extremely a good journey. Mark has a cause that he believes in. I'd like him to talk a little bit about as well.
Thanks, Aurora. So I work for Shoppers Drug Mart here in Ontario, and every year they do the Run for Women, and this year is no exception in 2021, except it will be a virtual run. So the Run for Women runs from July 4th to the 11th, 2021. It's happening in several cities. You can go to runforwomen.ca and see if there's a city near you that you can participate in. For me, I live in Thunder Bay, but I'm participating in the run in Ottawa because it's virtual. So sometime during that week, my wife and I are going to go pick a park in Thunder Bay, and we're going to walk our dogs 4 or 5 kilometers for the Run for Women. All monies raised in the Run for Women go towards women's mental health charities. So for us, for my group of runners in Thunder Bay, or walkers, as it were, the charity, the money stays in Thunder Bay to go towards those women's mental health charities. So it's a great cause, and it's bound to be a great week of people walking and raising awareness. So if you're interested at all, you can go to runforwomen.ca and sign up.
Definitely.
Nice.
An amazing cause. And you, Ryan, as well. You have a cause. You
Yeah,
really
so
believe in.
I don't support like one charity in particular, but I'm very outspoken about addiction. Somebody who's battled with addiction myself for a number of years, I always want to reach out to our listeners and say, if you're somebody who is in that boat, please reach out either to myself, to an organization, to a friend or family member. Life will get better. It's one of those things that, you know, we all spend years trapped in this bubble, but you never understand how much easier things can be when you reach out and get that help and just kind of see a different perspective. So again, if you're somebody struggling with addiction, just know that life will get better. Reach out. You can always hit me up. I'm on Facebook. I'm all over the place. Hit me up. I will always respond, especially if you're struggling like that.
Definitely. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, James and John, for joining us. It was really nice catching up with you and having a good chat about that. I'm so excited. Expressions podcast number 4. Done.
Yeah, this was awesome. This was a great time.
Yeah, awesome. Great to meet you guys.
Before we say goodbye, I just want to touch on the whole concept of what the show is and why mental health is so important, and just what we're doing ourselves. And we've had our episode 0 where we talk about ourselves more in depth. But the reason we're doing Expressions podcast is, I think for each of us, we have our own reasons. But for me, very strongly, is to give my mental health something to do, to give me that thing to be creative about when I can't go out and shoot wrestling and I can't do all these other things that I always like to do, like my photo day trips that I run and all these things that have, for the past year, disappeared. So for all of you people out there who feel like you are in a rut or have your own situations that you just don't feel like you're getting out of, or just have good and bad days where one of those bad days you just, is so bad that you just have to do something, think of an idea, write it down, make it happen. Call some friends, say, hey, I've got an idea. What do you think of this? And they say, hey, that's a great idea. You never know. You might turn into a podcast. It might turn into a band. It might turn into a group of friends that just like getting together and skateboarding. You don't know. The bottom line is, when you're down and you're having those bad times, find your voice, find your personal expression, get out there and make something happen for yourselves. Because I know it's really made me feel a lot better since we've been doing this. I was having some pretty rough days, going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home. It got to the point where it's like, Aurora, hey, what do you think? And Aurora's like, hey, Bri, what do you think? And we're like, yeah, we think. Let's do something. And we did it. So for you guys who were in the Noolands and now doing your own thing, I give you both a lot of credit for keeping it going and keeping that dream alive. I wish you all the best in the world with whatever you guys do. And if there's anything we can do for you, by all means, just let us know. Happy to be here to help you. You guys stay creative and keep your voices going as well.
Hang on. Don't ask me to make music. I will not help you. I have no help in that regard. I think I made that very clear throughout this episode. Anything else, sure, but
Nice.
But yes, thank you guys. This was an absolute blast. I really appreciate you guys doing this on such short notice.
Well, you're welcome. We had so much fun. Yeah, this is great. Anytime.
Appreciate it.
We'll come on next week. No.
Well, if we have a guest say no, then we had you at next week originally anyway. So make it a two.
Just come on back.
Yeah.
I'll be in a different locale.
There you go.
Next week we can talk about the book that I've been writing.
Ooh,
There we
that's
go.
awesome.
I've been writing it for 10 years, so
Okay.
not much to talk about.
We'll get it done, and we'll have you back on to talk about your book that is released as well.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. On that cliffhanger, from all of us here at Expressions, we want to thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to express yourself, stay creative, and we will see you right here next week on the Expressions podcast. Oh, I kept the logo on. My bad. We're off to a great start already. Welcome to the Expressions Podcast.